With the release of Gorou, there are some insane buffs you can give the defense-based Gorou teams in Genshin Impact. Today, we're going to be touching on exactly how to build this character, because while it is pretty simple to build him, there are some very specific things you need to do with him. Otherwise, you're going to be feeling a little lackluster on your squad. Now, the thing you need to know first and foremost about Gorou is all of his defensive-oriented buffs are coming from one thing. This is going to be his elemental skill, his Inuzaka all-around defense here. This is going to give you that flat defense increase, and it's entirely based on the talent level of your elemental skill. So it is incredibly important to level this talent up as much as possible, as the flat amount of defense you're gaining is strictly on the talent level of your elemental skill. The elemental burst also does give you a defense buff. However, the defense buff flat amount that you're gaining from this skill is also based on your elemental skill, not your elemental burst. Leveling your elemental burst only increases the skill damage and the crystal collapse damage while your elemental burst is activated. So if you want to put in zero amount of effort, very minimal amount of effort on leveling his talents, level the E, leave the normal attack and the elemental burst alone there. If you want to build him more for damage later on, which is something that he's very terrible at, that is something to look forward to in the future. However, the other way that you're going to be boosting up your damage here is from his Ascension, which is going to give you 25% increased defense for 12 seconds when you activate his 80 cost energy on his elemental burst. And while his elemental skill and elemental burst are relatively wordy when it comes to description, that is the easiest way to describe him. In addition to that, you also do get scaling bonuses for having extra Geo characters in your party. And even though it does say 3 Geo characters, keep in mind that it also does count Gorou as one of those 3 Geo characters. So if you want this Geo damage bonus from his elemental skill, you need Gorou and 2 other characters of your choice. And Gorou's E is very easy to use. All you need to do is throw it down. So take a look at Albedo's defense in this situation here. We have 3,086 defense. Throw Gorou's a little E down there, swap into Albedo, and as the paw shows up, you're gonna have that defense bonus, 3,425 defense. There's also a significant way to boost up characters like Arataki Ito and Noelle, who have scaling defense to attack percent ratios, 1,283 attack here on our Noelle. Swap her over here, get her to the field effect. We're going to be going up to 2,890 and then activate our elemental burst. And you're going to be up to 5,185 attack with that Gorou elemental burst activated. Now keep in mind as well, if you activate his elemental burst, you're going to have access to an additional 25% defense in this little field from his elemental skill. Instead of it being stationary attached to that flag, will follow you around. But as his skill and burst don't scale off any particular stat, this leaves the question, how are we going to be building this character? And it's all about this elemental burst's 80 cost energy. This is going to lead you into some sort of energy recharged focused build. Very important that you have access to this as often as possible. It's going to follow you around. It's going to make it very easy of use, and you're going to be able to go back and forth between your elemental burst and your elemental skill to get that defense bonus up as much as humanly possible. Now, the stats and the artifact selection that you could have access to here, a lot of players will be drawn towards the Husk of Opulent Dreams set for Gorou first and foremost, because it's the new defense-oriented Geo set. However, keep in mind, we don't necessarily need to be building him for defense. So some other sets that you guys could think about out there are some of the old tried and trues. 4-piece Noblish Oblige to give that 20% attack bonus. Another excellent set that you can utilize on Gorou is 2 pieces of the Emblem of Severed Fate set for that 20% energy recharge. You also have a couple 4-star pieces of gear, such as the Exile set, which also gives you 20% energy regen. Now, energy recharge is going to be one of the main stats we're looking for here, but it's not the only one, because we're going to be using Favonius Warbow. It's going to have energy recharge on it, but also critical hits have a chance to generate elemental particles, which restore 6 energy for whoever absorbs these particles. So this means we're going to need critical hit chance as well. You could use other ER bonus bows, such as the Sacrificial Bow, or even if you have the 5-star bow, the Elegy for the End bow for that slight energy recharge plus additional effect at the same time. However, if you were looking for pure energy regen, Favonius Warbow is what you're going to be doing here. Your end stats are going to be looking something similar to this. You're going to be using an energy recharge Sands, a defense or Geo related elemental Goblet here, and then a crit rate Circlet. Your substats you're going to be looking for energy recharge and crit rate. This is because you're going to be wanting to hit these sort of thresholds. 220% plus energy recharge is where you really need to be, and then try to aim for like 55, 60, 65% crit rate so you can start generating these particles with Gorou to keep the uptime on his elemental burst as high as possible, because getting that extra 25% defense will just give you that bit of a slight increase to your damage overall in comparison to his elemental skill. And then also the elemental burst will follow you around, making so that you will have that buff no matter where it is that you travel. Now, a couple constellations that could change your build slightly is specifically the Constellation 4 here, which gives him a way to heal based off of his defense. So it does give him a stat to scale from. However, Gorou's base defense is quite terrible. Even at level 80 here, his base defense is 575. So if you build him for straight up defense, you could be healing for half of your defense every 1.5 seconds, which right now would be healing for a little over 600 HP every 1.5 seconds. Even if you built him in a mono defense build, 3000 defense, that is still 1500 HP every 1.5 seconds, and that is only for the active character during his elemental burst if you're playing solo player, and that is his only constellation that gives you a new scaling stat. The C6 doesn't give you a scaling stat, it just buffs up your damage based on how many Geo characters are in your party once again. And while it's not recommended, if you're dead set on doing as much damage with your Gorou as possible, look for a crit chance or crit damage focused bow for Gorou here. This is because most of his damage scales off of defense. However, there is no defensive bow option. So try to get crit chance and crit damage from your bow, and then to swap on over to the Husk of Opulent Dreams set for sure to try to get as much Geo damage and defense from his E as well as elemental burst as humanly possible. And as with every other DPS character, focus in on those DPS stats on your artifacts: defense percent Sands, Geo damage or defense percent Goblet, crit chance or crit damage Circlet, and look for more crit chance, crit damage, as well as energy recharge in your various substats on your character. So Gorou's elemental skill, elemental burst, and Constellation 6 beg the question, who are we pairing with Gorou in Genshin Impact? Obviously, either Arataki Ito or Noelle can be your main carry character with these buffs given to them through Gorou. On top of that, Albedo is another fantastic character. Your fourth character, if you're running triple Geo, is going to be some sort of flex pick character. If you need to break different shields, you can bring in someone like Bennett, Raiden Shogun, Fischl, any other character to kind of help you figure out what it is that you need to be doing in a certain encounter is going to be taking up that flex pick slot. If you don't need to have a flex pick slot to break shields at all, you could even throw in another Geo character. Yunjin in the future is going to be another defensive scaling Geo character. You can throw Zhongli in there. And if you just have that C6, and even though she doesn't benefit from defense buffs, she will still have that Constellation 6 on Gorou to give her 40% Geo crit damage, which is going to be none other than the legendary Ningguang as well. And of course, the Geo Traveler is always there to pick up a little bit of slack at that crit damage buff from Gorou C6 and that crit chance increase from your Traveler. But no matter who it is that you decide to pair with Gorou, if you follow this build, you're going to be doing wonderful things with him as your Geo support.